Today we're going to talk about the characteristics of life. So a question you can ask before you start going through these notes to yourself is, how do you know something is alive? One of the characteristics that scientists have as a requirement for life is that it is composed of cells. Things that are made of cells are highly organized. Cells have different parts inside of them that carry out life's functions, and cells are the smallest unit capable of all life's functions. So you can have some cells that are alive on their own. They're called single-celled organisms. There are other types of cells that are only alive if they're with a group of other cells, and those are the cells that make up things like people in multicellular organisms. Another characteristic of life is reproduction. So this is the ability of a species to make more of their own kind. There's two different types of reproduction. Sexual reproduction means that something has two parents, a mother and a father. Another type of reproduction is called asexual reproduction. Those organisms have only one parent, and it includes things like bacteria, where you might start out with one bacteria cell, and then it divides in half and makes two new bacterial cells. That's asexual reproduction. Another characteristic of life is metabolism. Metabolism is just all of the chemical reactions that take place in an organism that help it to stay alive. So oftentimes people think of metabolism when they think of getting energy from food. And so using energy from food to make your body move and grow is definitely part of metabolism. So it's just using energy. Homeostasis is another characteristic of life. The word homeostasis just means balance. And what it means for people like us is that we can keep the insides of our body the same even if the outside of our body is changing. So for example, you can see this guy, he's standing in a place that's very cold, so the temperature outside of his body might be below zero. It's very cold, but the inside of his body is always the same temperature, and that's because his body is able to maintain homeostasis. So humans, for example, maintain homeostasis for body temperature. You can also maintain homeostasis for other things. In humans, our blood, for example, always has the same pH. Even if we eat things that are acidic or something like that, our blood will always stay the same pH. So it's another way that we maintain homeostasis. Organisms pass their DNA onto their offspring, and that's called heredity via DNA. And so it's how we pass our physical traits through DNA from parents to their children. That's why we have a wolf here, for example, that gave birth to a baby wolf. And it's the same reason that a wolf does not give birth to something like a duck, right? They have different DNA. Things that are alive are also responsive, meaning that they can react to their surroundings or to a stimulus. So for example, if you are sitting inside in the summer and it's really, really cold in your house or wherever you are because you have the air conditioner on, you might put on a sweater. And then if you go outside of your house where it's hot out, you might have to take off your sweater. And that's you responding to a change in your environment. And other organisms can do this too. For example, plants like to grow against gravity. It's how they grow straight up. So this tomato plant started out with the pot upright, and then they turned the pot on its side, and the plant turned to go upright again against gravity. So that's an example of responsiveness in plants. Things that are alive are also capable of growth and development. And so things that start out with a very small number of cells can grow larger and more complex over a lifetime. This is something that mammals do, for example. These pictures are actually of a bat embryo. So you can see it starts out when it's a young embryo. Before it's born, it looks very small. And the parts are not very well developed. And then as the bat matures, you can see structures starting to become more pronounced. You can see the start of the wings here, and then here they get bigger. And then by the time the bat is ready to be born, you can see there's a lot of tissue that makes up the wings, and the bat is much larger than it was when it started developing. And the last characteristic of life is evolution. Evolution means that groups of organisms, so a species as a whole, can change over time. And so what that means is that if you have, let's say, a group of butterflies that live in a specific environment, if they survive better, if they're bigger, the whole population will over time grow a little bit larger, because the ones that are larger are the ones that are more successful at reproducing. So those are the 8 major characteristics of life.